My mom skipped my wedding to take my sister on a healing spa trip, so I gave a speech that shattered her mask and made her the outcast. I used to think that if I just tried hard enough, if I was perfect enough, my mother would finally see me the way she saw my sister, until the day she told me she wouldn't attend my wedding because it might hurt Sophia's feelings. My name is Amelia Carter, and I'm 30 years old. I work as a school counselor, helping kids navigate their emotional struggles. Ironic, considering I spent most of my life unable to navigate my own. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my younger sister Sophia, watching our mother Margaret shower her with attention, praise, and opportunities that somehow never seemed to extend to me. Growing up, I told myself it was normal. Sophia was the baby after all, born when I was already 8 years old. She was artistic, dramatic, the kind of child who drew people's attention naturally. I was quiet, studious, responsible, the easy child who never caused problems. But easy, I learned, often meant invisible. When Sophia wanted to take expensive art classes, Mom found the money. When I asked about joining the debate team, Mom said we couldn't afford the travel costs. When Sophia threw tantrums about not getting the designer clothes she wanted, Mom would take her shopping. When I quietly mentioned needing new school shoes because mine had holes in them, Mom would sigh and say we'd see about it next month. The pattern continued through high school and college. I earned a full scholarship to State University for my grades, while Sophia got Mom's financial support for a private art school that cost more than most people's cars. I worked part-time jobs throughout college to pay for books and living expenses, while Sophia called home whenever she needed money for supplies, social events, or just because she felt like shopping. I graduated summa cum laude and got my master's degree in counseling psychology. Mom's response was a brief "that's nice, honey," before launching into a 20-minute conversation about Sophia's latest painting. When Sophia dropped out of art school in her junior year to find herself, Mom supported her decision and even funded a trip to Europe for artistic inspiration. But I kept trying. I kept believing that if I just achieved enough, helped enough, proved myself enough, Mom would finally see me as worthy of the same love and attention she gave Sophia so freely. Then I met David. David Chen was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. Kind, supportive, successful in his own right as a software engineer, and most importantly, he saw me, really saw me. He appreciated my quiet strength, my dedication to helping others, my ability to listen and understand. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone's first choice rather than their backup plan. When David proposed 18 months ago, I was over the moon. I called Mom immediately, practically vibrating with excitement as I told her about the romantic beach proposal, the beautiful ring, our plans for the future. Her response was underwhelming. "Oh, that's nice," she said in the same tone she might use to comment on the weather. "Have you set a date yet?" "We're thinking next spring," I said, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice to make up for her lack of it. "Maybe April or May. We want to have it at the Botanical Gardens downtown, you know, the one with the gorgeous rose garden." That sounds expensive. Will David's family be paying for it?" The question stung. Not congratulations, not "I'm so happy for you," but immediate concern about money and who would be responsible for it. "We're planning to pay for most of it ourselves," I said. "David and I have been saving up. We don't want a huge wedding, just something beautiful and meaningful with the people we love." "Well, that's probably for the best." Sophia's been feeling pretty down lately about her relationship situation. She broke up with that artist boy she was seeing, and she's been worried she'll never find anyone. A big wedding might just make her feel worse about her own life. There it was, my engagement, one of the happiest moments of my life, immediately reframed in terms of how it might affect Sophia's feelings. Over the next few months, as David and I planned our wedding, Mom's lack of enthusiasm became increasingly obvious. She didn't offer to help with planning, didn't ask to see my dress, didn't seem interested in any of the details that typically excited mothers of brides. When I'd call to share updates or ask for her opinion on flowers or music, she'd listen politely but always seemed distracted, often cutting the conversation short to take calls from Sophia or deal with some crisis in Sophia's life. Meanwhile, Sophia herself was Sophia. Dramatic, self-centered, and completely absorbed in her own problems. She'd recently decided to become a freelance graphic designer, which mostly seemed to involve creating Instagram posts about her artistic journey while asking Mom for money to support her lifestyle. She was 22, beautiful, and utterly convinced that the world revolved around her, a belief that Mom had spent her entire life reinforcing. 3 months before the wedding, I called Mom to finalize some details about family seating and accommodations for out-of-town relatives. That's when she dropped the first real bombshell. About the wedding, she said, her voice taking on that carefully neutral tone I'd learned to recognize as trouble. I've been thinking, and I'm not sure it's such a good idea for me to make such a big deal about it. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? Well, Sophia's been going through such a hard time lately. She's struggling with her career, she's lonely, and seeing you have this perfect wedding and perfect husband. I'm just worried it might be too much for her emotionally. I sat there in my car outside the grocery store, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what I was hearing. Mom, are you saying you don't want to come to my wedding because it might upset Sophia? I didn't say I wouldn't come, she said quickly. I just think maybe we should keep it low-key. Maybe I shouldn't make such a fuss about it. You know how sensitive Sophia is. It's my wedding, Mom. Your daughter is getting married. How is celebrating that making a fuss? You know what I mean, Amelia. Sophia is in a fragile place right now. Sometimes we have to be considerate of other people's feelings. I wanted to scream, Sophia's feelings. Always Sophia's feelings. What about my feelings? What about the fact that I was getting married and wanted my mother to be happy for me, to celebrate with me, to act like this mattered to her at all? But I didn't scream. I did what I'd always done. I swallowed my disappointment and tried to be understanding. Okay, I said quietly. I hope you'll be there. It would mean a lot to me. Of course I'll be there, she said, but something in her tone made me doubt it. My doubts proved justified. 2 weeks later, Mom called with another update. I've been talking to Sophia about the wedding, she said, and we think it might be better if I don't make too big a production of it. You know, keep things simple and understated so Sophia doesn't feel left out. What does that mean exactly? Well, maybe I shouldn't get a new dress or anything fancy. And maybe I shouldn't sit in the front row. That might make Sophia feel bad about not being the center of attention. I felt something crack inside my chest. Mom, you're the mother of the bride. Of course you should sit in the front row. Of course you should get a new dress if you want one. This is my wedding day. I know, honey, but you have to understand how hard this is for Sophia. She's always dreamed of being the first one to get married, and now she has to watch her older sister have this beautiful wedding while she's all alone. She's 22, I said, my voice getting sharper. She has her whole life to get married. This is my time. There's no need to be selfish about it, Amelia. Selfish. The word hit me like a slap. Wanting my own mother to celebrate my wedding was selfish. That night, I cried myself to sleep in David's arms. He held me and listened as I poured out my frustration, my hurt, my confusion about why my own mother seemed more concerned with Sophia's hypothetical feelings than with my actual happiness. Maybe you should talk to your mom, David suggested gently. Really talk to her. Tell her how this is making you feel. I tried. Over the next month, I had several conversations with Mom, trying to explain how important her support meant to me, how much I wanted her to be excited about the wedding, how hurt I was by her lack of enthusiasm. Each time, she'd make sympathetic noises and promise to do better, but nothing really changed. If anything, she seemed to grow more distant, more focused on Sophia's needs and feelings. Then, 6 weeks before the wedding, I found out what Mom and Sophia had really been planning. I was at Mom's house dropping off some family photos David and I wanted to include in our reception slideshow when I overheard a phone conversation she was having with her sister, my Aunt Linda. No, I don't think I'll be able to make it to Amelia's wedding after all, Mom was saying. Sophia's been having such a hard time, and I think it would be better if I spent that weekend with her instead. Maybe we'll go to that spa resort upstate, help her relax and feel better about herself. I stood frozen in the hallway, clutching the box of photos as my mother continued. I know it sounds terrible, but Sophia needs me right now. She's been crying every night about how alone she feels, especially with Amelia's wedding coming up. It's just too painful for her to watch her sister have everything she wants while she has nothing. What about Amelia? I heard Aunt Linda ask. Won't she be hurt if you're not there? Amelia will understand, Mom said dismissively. She's always been the practical one. She knows family comes first, and right now Sophia needs more support than Amelia does. Amelia has David and his family. Sophia only has me. I backed away from the conversation and quietly left the house, my hands shaking so hard I could barely start my car. I drove around aimlessly for an hour, trying to process what I'd just heard. My mother wasn't just planning to downplay my wedding, she was planning to skip it entirely. And not for any real emergency or unavoidable conflict, but because she thought my sister's jealousy and self-pity were more important than being there for one of the most significant days of my life. That evening, I confronted her directly. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me," I said when she answered the phone. "Are you planning to come to my wedding?" There was a long pause. "Of course I am, honey. Why would you ask that?" "Because I heard you on the phone with Aunt Linda today. I heard you say you were thinking about taking Sophia to a spa that weekend instead." Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was defensive. "I was just thinking out loud. Sophia's been so depressed lately and I thought maybe—" "Mom, stop. Just stop." My voice was steadier than I felt. "Tell me the truth. Are you coming to my wedding or not?" She sighed heavily. "Amelia, you have to understand. Sophia is going through a really difficult time right now. She feels like everyone is moving on with their lives while she's stuck. Watching you get married, seeing how happy you are. It's just going to make her feel worse about herself. So your solution is to skip your own daughter's wedding?" "I'm not skipping it, I'm just prioritizing." "You're strong, Amelia. You always have been. You can handle disappointment. Sophia can't. She needs more support right now." "I need support too, Mom. I need my mother at my wedding. You'll have David's mother there. You'll have plenty of people supporting you. But I won't have my mother. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family." The irony wasn't lost on me. She was asking me to sacrifice my mother's presence at my wedding for Sophia's comfort. But when had Sophia ever been asked to sacrifice anything for me? "What if I said I needed you there?" I asked quietly. "What if I said that having you at my wedding was the most important thing in the world to me?" "I would say that you're being dramatic and selfish. This isn't about what you want, Amelia. It's about what's best for the family." That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called David and told him what had happened. Then I called a few close friends. I explained the situation and asked for their honest opinions about what I should do. Their responses were unanimous and eye-opening. Every single person I talked to was appalled by my mother's behavior. They pointed out patterns I'd been too close to see clearly, how I'd been trained from childhood to prioritize Sophia's needs over my own, how my accomplishments were consistently minimized while Sophia's were celebrated, how I'd been conditioned to accept crumbs of attention and call it love. "Amelia," my best friend Sarah said, "what your mom is doing isn't normal. It's not okay. You deserve better than this." For the first time in my life, I started to believe that maybe I did deserve better. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of final preparations and emotional turmoil. Mom continued to waffle about whether she'd attend, making it clear that if she did come, it would be a reluctant obligation rather than a joyful celebration. Sophia, meanwhile, ramped up her own drama, calling Mom daily with new crises and emotional breakdowns that coincidentally seemed to peak whenever wedding plans were discussed. I stopped trying to convince Mom to be excited about the wedding. I stopped sharing details or asking for her input. I focused instead on the people who were genuinely happy for me. David's family, my friends, the co-workers who helped me plan my bachelorette party, the distant relatives who called to express their excitement about the upcoming celebration. 3 days before the wedding, Mom called with her final decision. "I've thought about it a lot," she said, "and I think it's best if I don't come to the wedding. Sophia is just too fragile right now, and I can't abandon her when she needs me most. I'm going to take her to that spa resort for the weekend. We both need some time to decompress." I felt strangely calm as I absorbed this information. After weeks of uncertainty, at least I finally had clarity. "I understand," I said quietly. "I'm glad you're being so mature about this, honey. I knew you'd understand that family has to come first." "Family does come first," I agreed. "I'm just realizing that you and I have very different definitions of what that means." The morning of my wedding dawned bright and beautiful. I woke up in a hotel room surrounded by my bridesmaids, feeling nervous but excited. For a moment, I allowed myself to feel sad about Mom's absence, to grieve for the mother-daughter relationship I'd always wanted but never had. Then I got dressed in my beautiful gown, had my hair and makeup done by artists who made me feel like a princess, and prepared to marry the man I loved. The ceremony was perfect. David looked handsome and nervous in his tuxedo, his eyes filling with tears when he saw me walk down the aisle. His mother had insisted on walking me down the aisle herself, saying that if my own mother was too foolish to be there, she'd be honored to fill that role. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising to always prioritize our relationship, to support each other's dreams, and to build a family based on love and mutual respect rather than obligation and manipulation. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the garden erupted in cheers and applause from the 150 people who had chosen to be there to celebrate with us. During the cocktail hour, I mingled with our guests, accepting congratulations and feeling overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding me. These people, David's family, my friends, co-workers, extended relatives, had all made the effort to be there for us. They'd bought gifts, traveled from out of town, taken time off work, all because they genuinely wanted to celebrate our happiness. That's when I noticed several people asking where my mother was. "I haven't seen Margaret yet," said my cousin Jennifer. "Is she running late?" "Where's your mom?" asked Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor who'd known me since childhood. I was looking forward to seeing her. Each time someone asked, I gave a polite, vague response about her being unable to make it. But as the evening progressed and more people inquired about Mom's absence, I found myself getting angrier rather than sadder. Here were all these people who had prioritized my happiness enough to show up, and my own mother couldn't be bothered because it might inconvenience my self-absorbed sister. When it came time for the reception toasts, David's best man and my maid of honor both gave beautiful, heartfelt speeches about love and commitment, and the joy of watching us find each other. Then David stood up to thank everyone for coming and to talk about how grateful he was for the love and support we'd received. And then it was my turn. I'd prepared a traditional bride's speech, thanking everyone for coming, expressing gratitude for their love and support, talking about how excited David and I were to start our lives together. It was safe, appropriate, and completely dishonest about how I was really feeling. As I stood there looking out at the faces of people who had chosen to celebrate with us, something inside me shifted. These people deserved honesty. I deserved honesty. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop protecting Sophia's feelings and Mom's reputation at the expense of my own truth. I set aside my prepared remarks and spoke from my heart. "Thank you all so much for being here tonight," I began. "Looking out at all of you, I'm overwhelmed by the love and support you've shown David and me. You've traveled from near and far, you've taken time out of your busy lives, you've celebrated with us and made this day absolutely perfect." I paused, taking a deep breath. "I want to be honest with you about something. You may have noticed that my mother isn't here tonight. She made the choice not to attend my wedding because she was worried that seeing me happy might hurt my sister's feelings." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I could see surprised faces, confused expressions, people looking around as if they might have missed something. "For 30 years," I continued, my voice growing stronger, "I've lived in the shadow of my sister Sophia. I've watched my accomplishments be minimized, my needs be dismissed, and my feelings be considered less important than hers. I've been told that wanting my own mother's love and support makes me selfish." The room was completely silent now, everyone hanging on my words. I graduated summa cum laude from college while working 2 part-time jobs. My mother's response was to ask if I could help pay for Sophia's art supplies. I earned my master's degree in counseling psychology and started a career helping children work through their emotional struggles. My mother barely acknowledged it because Sophia had a gallery showing that same month. I could see David watching me with a mixture of pride and concern, ready to support me whatever direction this went. When I got engaged to David, the first thing my mother said wasn't congratulations. It was worry about how my happiness might affect Sophia. When I planned this beautiful wedding, my mother's primary concern wasn't my joy or my future, but whether celebrating my life might make Sophia feel bad about hers. I looked around the room at all the faces staring back at me. Family, friends, distant relatives, people who had known me for years and witnessed the dynamics I was describing. Today, my mother chose to take Sophia to a spa weekend instead of attending my wedding. She chose Sophia's imaginary hurt feelings over being present for one of the most important days of my life. I paused, feeling tears start to form but refusing to let them fall. "I'm telling you this not to hurt anyone or to air family drama, but because I want you to know how much it means to me that you're all here. You chose to celebrate love and commitment and new beginnings. You chose to prioritize joy over jealousy. support over selfishness. My voice was shaking now, but I pressed on. For 30 years I've tried to earn my mother's love by being perfect, by being selfless, by putting everyone else's needs before my own. Today, I'm done with that. Today I'm choosing to surround myself with people who love me for who I am, not who I can be for them. I raised my champagne glass. So here's to David, who sees me and loves me exactly as I am. Here's to all of you, who chose to be here for us today. And here's to the family we're creating together. A family built on love, respect, and mutual support rather than guilt and manipulation. The room erupted in applause. Not polite, obligatory clapping, but genuine, enthusiastic applause that went on for nearly a minute. People were standing, cheering, some wiping away tears. I saw David's mother beaming at me with pride, my bridesmaids crying happy tears, my coworkers nodding in understanding and support. As the applause died down, I noticed a commotion near the entrance to the reception hall. Mom had arrived. She was standing in the doorway in a simple black dress, her face a mask of shock and fury. Sophia was with her, looking confused and uncomfortable in an outfit that was clearly designed to upstage a bride, a white cocktail dress that was entirely inappropriate for someone who wasn't getting married. Mom strode across the room toward me, her face flushed with anger. "Amelia," she hissed when she reached me. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" "I'm celebrating my wedding with people who actually wanted to be here," I said calmly. "You just humiliated me in front of everyone." I told the truth about my experience. "If that's humiliating to you, maybe you should think about why." Sophia hung back, clearly realizing that her white dress and dramatic entrance weren't having the intended effect. The guests were watching this interaction with fascination and judgment, and it wasn't directed at me. "You can't just air family business like this," Mom continued, her voice getting louder. "These people don't need to know our private affairs." "You made it public when you chose not to show up," I replied. "People were asking where you were all evening. I got tired of making excuses for you. I came, didn't I? I'm here now." "You're here now because someone called and told you what I said in my speech. You're not here because you wanted to celebrate with me." David appeared at my side, placing a protective hand on my back. "Mrs. Carter?" he said politely but firmly. "Perhaps this conversation would be better had privately, later." "Don't you tell me how to talk to my daughter," Mom snapped at him. "With respect," David replied, his voice still calm but with steel underneath. "This is our wedding reception. If you can't be here to celebrate with us, then I think it's best if you leave." I felt a surge of love and gratitude for my husband, standing up for me in a way no one ever had before. Mom looked around the room, seeming to realize for the first time that everyone was watching her, judging her, seeing her exactly as I had described her. The relatives who had known our family for years were looking at her with disappointment and disapproval. Friends were shaking their heads in disgust. Even Sophia looked embarrassed by the scene. "This is unbelievable," Mom said, but her voice had lost its power. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" I asked. "Really think about it. What have you actually done for me that you didn't also do for Sophia, but better?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it, then opened it again. For the first time in my life, my mother was speechless. "I love you," I continued. "But I'm done begging for scraps of your attention. I'm done making myself smaller so Sophia can feel bigger. I'm done pretending that your favoritism is normal or acceptable." I looked around the room at all the people watching this exchange. "Thank you all for witnessing this," I said. "Thank you for seeing me, for supporting me, and for helping me realize that I deserve better than what I've been accepting." Mom turned and walked toward the exit, Sophia trailing behind her like a lost puppy. As they reached the door, several relatives followed them out, not to comfort them, but to give them a piece of their minds about their behavior. The reception continued, and if anything, the atmosphere became even more celebratory. People came up to me throughout the evening to tell me how proud they were of my courage, how long they'd noticed the unfair treatment, how happy they were to see me finally standing up for myself. David's mother hugged me with tears in her eyes. "You are exactly the kind of strong, honest woman I hoped my son would marry," she said. "Welcome to a family that will actually appreciate you." My cousin Jennifer, who had grown up witnessing the family dynamics, told me she'd been waiting years for someone to call out Mom's behavior. "We all saw it," she said. "We just didn't know how to say anything." Even some of Mom's longtime friends approached me to express their support. "Your mother has always been hard on you," said Mrs. Rodriguez, who had known our family for decades. "We never understood why. You've always been such a good daughter." The evening ended with David and me dancing to our favorite song while surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us. As we swayed together in the middle of the dance floor, I felt lighter than I had in years. "I'm proud of you," David whispered in my ear. "That took incredible courage." "I'm proud of me too," I whispered back. "For the first time in my life, I'm actually proud of me too." The next week, the fallout from the wedding continued. Mom called repeatedly, alternating between tearful apologies and angry accusations. Sophia sent long text messages about how hurt and betrayed she felt, as if my wedding speech had somehow been directed at her rather than about her. But I also received dozens of messages of support from people who had been at the wedding and people who had heard about what happened. Extended family members shared their own stories of witnessing Mom's favoritism over the years. Family friends expressed admiration for my courage in speaking up. Most surprisingly, I heard from other people who had experienced similar family dynamics: friends, co-workers, even some of the parents of kids I counseled at school. My speech had resonated with people who had their own experiences of being undervalued, overlooked, or sacrificed for a more important family member. A month after the wedding, Mom showed up at my new apartment unannounced. She looked older, more fragile than I remembered. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began. "About the way I've treated you and Sophia differently." I invited her in but didn't offer the immediate forgiveness she was clearly hoping for. "I think maybe I did favor Sophia," she continued. "But she needed more help. She's always been more sensitive, more fragile. You were always so strong and capable." "Being strong doesn't mean I didn't need love and support too," I said. "It just meant I learned not to ask for it." "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said quietly. "I thought I was protecting Sophia and that you could handle things on your own." "You were protecting Sophia from life," I replied. "And you were teaching me that my needs didn't matter as much as hers." We talked for 2 hours. Mom cried, apologized, made excuses, and slowly began to understand the impact of her choices. She asked if we could start over, if I could forgive her and give her a chance to do better. "I'm willing to try," I told her. "But things have to actually change. You can't just promise to do better and then fall back into old patterns when Sophia has her next crisis." "What do you mean?" "I mean that if you want a relationship with me, you have to treat me like your daughter, not like Sophia's caretaker. You have to celebrate my successes instead of minimizing them. You have to support my decisions instead of questioning them. And you have to stop asking me to sacrifice my happiness for Sophia's comfort." She agreed, though I could see in her eyes that she didn't fully understand what that would require. 6 months later, when David and I announced that I was pregnant, Mom's initial response was excitement and congratulations. Then, within the same conversation, she started worrying about how the news would affect Sophia, who was still single and struggling with her graphic design career. I hung up the phone and realized that some people never really change, they just get better at hiding their true nature temporarily. But I had changed. I had learned that I didn't need my mother's approval to be worthy of love. I had learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was necessary. I had learned that the family you create can be more important than the family you're born into. David and I built a beautiful life together. We bought a house, welcomed a daughter, and surrounded ourselves with people who chose to love and support us unconditionally. My work as a school counselor took on new meaning as I helped other kids navigate complicated family dynamics and learn to value themselves. Sophia eventually found her own path, though it took several more years of Mom's enabling before she was forced to become truly independent. Our relationship improved somewhat after she started therapy, and began to understand how the family dynamics had affected all of us, not just me. Mom and I maintained a cordial but distant relationship. She made efforts to treat me more fairly, but I could always sense the effort it required. The way she had to consciously override her instincts to prioritize Sophia's needs over mine. Real change, I learned, requires more than good intentions. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective that some people are simply incapable of making. But that was okay. I had learned that I couldn't control other people's choices, only my own responses to them. And I chose to build a life filled with people who saw my worth without me having to prove it, who celebrated my joy without qualification, and who understood that love isn't a finite resource that has to be rationed. On our 5th wedding anniversary, David and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony in our backyard, surrounded by our closest friends and family. The people who had earned their place in our lives through their actions, not their biology. As I looked around at the faces of people who genuinely loved and supported us, I felt grateful for the journey that had brought me to this moment. I had finally learned that I didn't need to earn love by being perfect or selfless or small. I had learned that the right people would love me for exactly who I was, imperfections and all. And most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to accept less than you deserve, even from family. To families of choice, I said, raising my glass to toast our guests, and to the courage to choose love over obligation, joy over guilt, and truth over keeping the peace. As everyone raised their glasses in response, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had finally stopped waiting for my mother to see me and had learned to see myself instead. And what I saw was a woman worthy of love, respect, and celebration, not because of what I could do for others, but simply because of who I was. For the first time in my life, that was enough.